Hello, everybody. This is future Brian. I'm just recording this little bit to kind of go at the beginning of the video, kind of to apologize for two different things. First is this video is going to have a lot more cuts in it than some of my previous ones. I'm afraid that when I originally recorded this, I was beginning to get a cold, which I currently have right now. So there was some coughing I had to like remove and sniffs and stuff like that. Um, the other thing is that occasionally you might notice that the webcam at the bottom might blink out for a second or slow down, or the movements don't exactly match what I'm doing. Um, Apparently, I accidentally left something running in the background, which messed up a bunch of stuff when it came to kind of, using up memory and stuff like that. So I'm afraid there isn't really a whole lot I can do about that other than just record the whole thing. And as you might be able to hear, my voice probably would not be able to handle that right now. Thank you, everybody, for your patience, and please enjoy the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Brian of Hessens County, and I'm glad you could join us today again for our next episode of our Lineage actual play as we go through. As you can see on the screen, here is our updated genealogy chart family tree, and today we're going to be starting off with Liiw the Brave and then kind of seeing how things go from there. Just some housekeeping and review for last time. So up to this point, our last monarch clad was Gusa the Old. If you take a look here, so just to review last time, the Paamus, the city that we're playing as, sort of, and Talisa kind of temporarily united. But if you go back up to the family tree here, you can see they have split again. So we have Liiw the Brave, who's going to be our monarch of Paamus, and then their sibling Lugh, who's going to be the monarch of Talisa moving forward. I did some world building, so down here we have a little bit of a map that shows the location of Paamus here. Our sort of rival city that we've kind of had from the very beginning, I've decided to kind of name it Atuna. So Atuna is over here in red. We have Talisa over here, which was the city-state that kind of temporarily united and now is kind of a client state, I guess you could say. And, of course, over here we have that one city-state that kind of had fallen into chaos that I've decided to call Solen. Previously, remember, if you might not recall, under Gusa the Old, we had some sort of chaos breakout in Solen. The government kind of collapsed, stuff like that, which resulted in kind of like basically a civil war proxy conflict between Paamus and Atuna, each supporting different sides in Solen's sort of internal struggle. We decided, based on events and things like that, that Paamus kind of ended up losing out on that sort of proxy conflict that ended up happening. So at the moment, Solen is really strongly in Atuna's sort of sphere of influence, while Talisa is kind of in Paamus's sphere of influence. Going over here to Liiw the Brave, just to review what we've decided so far for this person. Liiw, obviously, we already rolled their cognomen, the Brave. We also had already decided that, based on an event that had happened under Gusa the Old, that Liiw had married Joan, who Joan is the daughter of a major noble from Solen, that came along with some of the refugees that were kind of like on our side of the proxy conflict that kind of fled to Paamus after things went badly for them. So that's who we have marked here. So our next event would be to roll for our heir. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So we're going to have five heirs for this generation, assuming nothing strange happens. So I'm going to go ahead up here. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and roll and see how many heirs there were for Lugh, just so we have a basic idea of how many are, if something happens to our family or their family, then they might merge back together. So we got 4, Okay. So I rolled so for Lugh, the sibling here, who's the monarch. So Talisa heirs. So for my first roll, I roll a 4, and then for the second roll, I rolled a 5. So that means there are going to be no heirs. So presumably it's going to kind of fall back to us. There we go. Presumably it's going to fall back to us and potentially to one of these other family members. All right, so now it's time for events. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice. Subtract 2, so we have 9 minus 2, so it means we're going to have 7 events today. Alrighty, so we have our cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so our first card, let me move that real quick. Our first card for today is the 7 of clubs, which reads, our monarch's partner dies. Spouse dies. Oh boy. It is a time for great grief across the kingdom, or is it an opportunity to forge new alliances? Okay, so our character married... how do we get so many heirs if that's what happens? Alright, presumably we remarry. Okay, I'm going to pull the next event, and then we'll see what happens in that one, and then potentially we'll at some point roll to have a remarry event or something. So our next card is the 4 of Spades. The 4 of Spades reads, the nobles of the realm have withered in strength. This will allow us to make sweeping reforms and weakening the nobility for the foreseeable future, or will it be seen as an act of great dishonor? But it would be seen as an act of great dishonor. That could be interesting. Also, what is the reason why the nobles have become so weak recently? We'll have to see. All right. Our next event is the 8 of Hearts. Taking a look at the 8 of Hearts, it says, the monarch's heir demands that the monarch abdicate. Would this be best for the kingdom, or should such insolence be punished? Oh boy. All right, let's see what our next event says, and maybe that'll influence what we decide to do here. So the next one is the King of Diamonds, which says, a warm and pleasant summer has resulted in good mood among the people of the realm, with many festivals happening. So good summer, good moods, good harvests. All right, event number 5 is the 10 of Clubs, which reads, multiple nobles have arrived in our capital and reiterated their oath of loyalty to the monarch. All right, event number 6 is the Queen of Diamonds. Where's Diamonds? There's Diamonds. The Queen of Diamonds, which reads, the recent years have been a perfect climate for farming, leading to many bountiful harvests. How does the realm use this abundance of resources? And then the last event... the last event is a Jack, so that means we're potentially going to be switching ages. For those of you who might not remember from the very beginning, we have... age. These cards can result in ages, the changing of ages, which can change the flavor of event cards. So the next card I draw is going to potentially affect that. So let's see. So if we got a heart, that means that we are going to start a golden age, which deducts 1 from, if we go back here at the top, remember we have these 3 values that kind of measure when the game is starting to reach towards its close. Whenever any of these hit 8, then it can trigger special events upon the succession that could potentially result in a game over, even if you still have lots of family members left. So if we get a golden age, first of all, that changes the flavor of our events to be more positive, and also that it deducts 1 from each of these categories. if we stay with a if we get a heart, we'll get a golden age. If we get a spade or a diamond, we get a stable age, which is in what we're in right now, which means nothing really changes. We're going to keep getting the same sort of neutral flavor events and things like that. If we draw a club, that means we're going to start a dark age, where a lot of the events are going to be pretty negative because of internal degradation of the kingdom and stuff like that. And we're also going to get a +1 to all 3 of the categories of weakness, instability, and dishonor. So yeah, that could be interesting. And it's a club. Oh no! So a dark age has begun. But things were looking so good. What's going on? Oh, okay. Event number 7 presumably is going to potentially influence exactly how I flavor this. But all right. That means also we're going to go over here to up here and go ahead and add one. Whoop, no, that should be a 3. I'm going to add 1 to each of these. To again reflect how things starting to go bad is not good for the kingdom in general. All right, and so that means event number 7 is going to be the 8 of diamonds. The 8 of diamonds event for the Dark Age flavor says a vassal has started to call themselves by a high-ranking title and is asserting their own autonomy. How do we respond to this clear act of treason? Vassal is acting uppity. How do we react? All right. Oh, right. And then before I decide exactly what's going to happen with all of these, I'm going to go ahead and roll our death event. Since that was the last of those. All right, and we have a 5 and a 2. Never found. One day we just disappeared. So was there a disappearance? Was there an accident and our body was just never found, so we were assumed dead? This could be interesting. Okay. All right, now how are we going to make sense of all of this? All right, so here's kind of how I see this going. So, we married Joan pretty early on, before Liu became king, or Clad, monarch. So it would make sense for us to remarry, but we're going to say that at least 1 or 2 of the kids, probably like the first 2 kids, were Joan's children. Let me roll a die and decide that. Yeah, 3 kids. The first 3 kids were Joan's. Married Joan, and then, so what I'll do is, I'll roll another marriage. So the first 3 kids are Jones. Remarried. Let's see, I need to get to the right page. Depending upon who this is, a 1 and a 5. Oh, no, sorry, I got that reversed. It's a 5 and a 1. Of a foreign noble house known for their charity. And then I need a name. How about Ragusa? Why not? Alright, okay. So that means the last 2 kids are Ragusas. Okay. The nobles are weakened. Do we reform or do we hold back? If we reform, we're going to add dishonor. Okay. So here's how things are going to go. I'm going to say we are going to reform. We're going to sort of reshuffle power and nobility in order to strengthen our friends and the Clodship. I'm going to change something. I know that I just rolled that Ragusa's from a foreign noble family, but instead I'm going to say that Ragusa is actually from a local noble family. Just because I think that matches the flavor a bit better, I'm going to say maybe in this case we're strengthening our in-laws a lot. Which would explain why the heir, who's one of Joan's kids, is going to be the one kind of pitching a fit and demanding our abdication because of the changes that we're making. So we're going to refuse and ends in what? What happens in the end? Alright, I'm going to roll a die. We know that Liiw the Brave doesn't actually abdicate. So this short revolt done by one or more of our kids has to end negatively somehow for them and positively for us. So I'm going to roll the die. They died. Like the heir who's demanding our abdication ends up like dying in combat or something. If it's a 3 or a 4, I'm gonna say no. No. I'm not gonna bother rolling because this is better. This is better. So anyway, we need to go back up here to the kids. All right, we know Lugh isn't going to have any kids because we already rolled that they're going to have no kids, right? So here's what we'll have happen. The 3 kids of Jones revolt. We need to go ahead and give them names. So let's name the first one Carr. Let's name them after Carr. The second one Moch. The third one will be, let's pick a new name. How about Fisa, which recycles today. And then the last one we'll say is, we'll just name them Liiw after ourselves. All right, so here's what's going to happen. The 3 kids of Jones all kind of join together and revolt together. They lose. Carr is going to end up dying. Moch and whoops. Okay. Moch also dies. But Fisa flees to Lugh and sort of like abandons the family. So there's a revolt kind of supporting the old aristocracy, or the old nobility. Two heirs dying and one fleeing to Talisa. We just let them go. They're kind of like under house arrest in Talisa, let's say. But then, okay, so things are going well. Multiple nobles renew oaths of loyalty. Let's say this is, let's say some of the former rebellion leaders are renewing their loyalty pledges, but this is a plot, a ploy. So we have good harvests. How are we going to use this? Let's say... Let's say we start an extravagant building project. In Paamus. Alright, but then... So the vassal that starts acting uppity is our client state at Talisa. So, we'll say that, what was his name again? This is when Lugh, this is when our sibling Lugh adopts, Fisa. And begins to claim they are independent. Again. We prepare to attack. Disappeared at camp while preparing to renew control over Talisa. Okay, so, alright, this seems like a pretty good sort of plan for things. So, basically we're going to go where, so our spouse has died, we remarry, and then so Liiw the Brave starts reinforcing sort of like the local claims to power of his in-laws, and reinforcing the monarchy, the clad shift, the monarchy itself. Our heirs and children from Joan start getting really upset about this. The fact that we're sort of taking this power from the traditional nobility and presumably some of like the refugee families that came that are their their lineage through Joan, and that ends up in a revolt. Two of the heirs end up dying in combat. One of them flees to Talisa and is kind of put under a house arrest. But Liiw the Brave doesn't necessarily want to like execute them or something, so they just let it go. They let them be. There's essentially exiled to Talisa. So things are going really well. Things seem like they're going back to normal. We start a big building project, and then all of a sudden, Lugh of Talisa adopts the Fisa, the son who fled, as their heir because Lugh doesn't have any children, or at least doesn't have any surviving children. And then they start declaring independence. So we're preparing to sort of resubjugate them, let's say. But then Liiw the Brave ends up just disappearing in camp, and nobody knows exactly what happened to them. It's some sort of accident or something. So I'm going to say that probably Sudey is going to be the one who is going to become Liu's successor, at least for the moment, simply out of there being a lack of anyone else. And I'm going to go ahead and roll a cognomen for them. And we'll see how well this goes. Oh, right. Because of the dishonorable actions that we did when it came to... I'm going to add an extra one to there. And yeah. So we rolled a 1 and a 4. So Sudey is hereby known as Sudey the Terrible. Which could be a good thing, or it could be a very bad thing. I'm not going to decide who they're married to yet, but I will go ahead and write their name down over here. Suday the Terrible. And that's that. Well, that proved interesting. Thank you all for joining me today. That was highly unexpected. Things are going to be really interesting going forward because unless we end up pulling another Joker card, we're going to keep pulling Dark Age events. So this game could suddenly become a bit shorter than I had initially anticipated it being, depending upon how all of that ends up shaking out. Going back up here, we've already got 3 points in instability and 2 points in dishonor. The way the game rules work is we need to have an 8 in one of those categories, but all we need is 1 or 2 bad events and a bad, roll on who the Clad marries or their cognomen in the next generation or two, and that could end up ending real quick. So we'll have to see how that goes. I'm also really interested in seeing how sort of the tensions with Talisa go and what Etuna kind of does with that, especially since Etuna seems to be sort of on the rise, so to speak, at least at the moment. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you all have a good zone, and I'll see you next time. If you would like to show your support for this channel or for the Hessens County blog, in the description down below, you will find links to the channel coffee and also the itch store. Please feel free to take a look, and thank you for your support.